What's cracking, ladies and gentlemen? Fully knowing coming at you another community shoutcast for the Aspect of Gaming Dota 2 Community Crackdown. We're loading into Insomnia up against ICLEN, and the winner of this will advance into the bracket finals, I believe. So both teams are currently in the losers bracket. And so Insomnia were knocked down by Team Envy, and so were ICLEN. So it will be interesting to see if it's ICLEN v Envy in the finals for that bracket, to see who advances on to next weekend. So we're just waiting on Suck on D's to load on in. And ICLEN, they are playing with Pengu, who was the mid player for Team Moving Experience. Oh no, not Moving Experience, YOLO Brand Swagtronics, who were the winners of the AGI Gaming Dota 2 National New Zealand tournament about 6 weeks ago. And so it should be interesting to see what ICLEN are able to pull out of the bag. They seem to have a very large roster of about 5-6 players. They're constantly rotating in at least one player. So I believe the last time it was Turtle as well as the Cock Penguin. Now they've replaced them with Pengu. So, not too sure if he will be resuming his usual role as the mid lane player, as Carl seems to be their preferred mid. But it looks like Suck on D's is having a bit of issue loading into the game. Hopefully we won't have to remake the lobby. We have been having a few issues lately with games taking a while for people to load in. But hopefully we should be good to go. There we go. Suck on D's is just loaded in. So it will be interesting to see what hero decides slips through the first banning stage, as it looks like Insomnia, they're the ones that have first pick.
Radiant team ban.
So Insomnia, I haven't really casted them before, so I'm not really too sure what their drafting style is like. Will be interesting to see if they decide to opt for a much more aggressive playing style. So Titan's immediate ban coming out from ICLEN, fairly standard here to ban out the first banning stage, just because he is so damn effective in the offlane. It's either on the Radiant side, where you have the easier offlane to begin with, or on the Dire side, since you can stack and clear on Ancients. We've got a Viper ban, so Insomnia are baiting out the Tinker ban from ICLEN, otherwise they're going to give it away. With that being said, if you ban out the Tinker, they can instead go for Faceless Void. So ICLEN, taking no chances, they ban out the Void, so they're more than happy to give away the Tinker, and ICLEN could look to counter that with the Brewmaster pickup of their own. Those heroes still are available in the pool. Viper, usually see him banned in the second banning stage because he's a very powerful 1v1 hero. If he is banned in the first banning stage, it's to bait the enemy hero into giving away a another tier 1 hero, such as a Brewmaster or a Doombringer who's been picked up. So Insomnia, they're not going for the bait, and ICLEN, they immediately capitalize. So they pick up a Tinker. Dire side Tinker isn't as powerful as the Radiant Tinker because the mid lane you don't have easy access to the Ancients, and so you don't have that going for you. It's much more difficult to recover through Ancients on the Dire side because it's a lot more exposed. Since the Dire offlane tier 1 is usually the first tower to fall for the Dire side. So when Dire Tinker is run, because your lanes are a lot weaker, you usually see a safe lane Tinker. So you put him in a trade lane to ensure he's able to find his early boots travels into Blink Dagger. We've got a Skywrath Mage pickup coming up from ICLEN. Skywrath Mage is a very powerful support hero because he's incredibly flexible. He can provide setup, or he can provide damage, or he can actually do a little bit of both. Skywrath Mage can set up ganks using that concussive shot, so you can opt to pick up another support hero that needs a little bit of setup, such as the Shadow Shaman, since he has to get in range to get the Shackle off, and then Skywrath Mage can alternate and provide damage. Skywrath Mage also synergizes as well with the Tinker, since you've got the Ancient Seal to amplify the burst damage already coming out from him, and the Ancient Seal on top of the E-Blade is absolutely absurd. And so it will be interesting to see what Insomnia Gaming decide to pick up as their second hero, since I've got the Doombringer, and Doombringer in the Radiant offlane enjoys a significant amount of farm. They immediately counterpick the Tinker with a Pugna, and so Pugna counters Tinker on 2 levels. In terms of Pugna's ability to be able to push, before Tinker gets the boots of travels into Blink Dagger, Pugna can knock down all your towers. And so the way to deal with Tinker is either to keep ganking him over and over again, or to take out all his objectives. And that's something that the Dota team, TDT, were able to use successfully against Cheesecake Gaming earlier on today. And so the Pugna pickup works very well because you're able to destroy those towers, deprive Tinker of his farming space. And he also counters Tinker because once that Nether Ward drops, Tinker can't do anything. He burns through mana so quickly that he'll wind up killing himself off that Nether Ward. So now we've got a Brewmaster ban coming up from Insomnia because you never want to give away Brewmaster and Tinker, since Brewmaster is able to therefore then provide the lockdown, while Tinker provides all the damage. And so it's an incredibly powerful combination of heroes. You also see Faceless Void in Tinker, because you could use the Chronosphere to buy Tinker enough time and space to be able to set up multiple marches as well as the missile. A very powerful combination of heroes. Death Prophet ban now coming up from ICLEN. Death Prophet synergizes very well with the Pugna because it gives you that Death Ball pushing strat. Death Prophet also fares okay against the Tinker in the mid lane. At worst, she should break even. So Tinker, if he's going to be running in the mid lane, probably will be going for 2 points in laser then maxing out the march. If he's going to be the safe lane farmer, we could see earlier points over in the missile, since you don't necessarily need the second point in laser. And the second point in laser is more of an efficiency play, so that you can harass out the enemy mid much more effectively, since it's 160 pure damage for 2 skill points. Very efficient spell in terms of damage that it gives you per mana. With a Wraith King ban now coming in from Insomnia, as Wraith King and Skywrath Mage, very powerful support duo. You've got the Concussive Shot to give Wraith King enough time to set up their Ray Fire Blast, and with the Ancient Seal, And Arcane Bolt, you've got a lot of damage coming up from those two. So Shadow Shaman now being banned out. You don't want to pick up Shadow Shaman when you're against the Pugna, because the Nether Ward will completely tear him apart. Shadow Shaman's squishy enough as it is, without killing himself by dropping wards. And so ICLEN will be interesting to see if they decide to pick up another support hero. They do. Earthshaker and Skywrath Mage, fairly standard support duo. You've got the Concussive Shot to set up for a much easier Fissure Block. And once you're able, if you are able to get a successful Fissure Block, Skywrath Mage can switch off and provide the damage. So it's the advantage of the Skywrath Mage is he effectively does the damage that a ganking hero or core position hero would do, especially once that Mystic Flare comes online. So the Arcane Bolt, since the Fissure will last for 8 seconds, so Earthshaker is able to provide you enough lockdown time. If he gets a good block in, the Skywrath Mage can clean them up. Earthshaker works very well with the Tinker, because he's there to be able to buy space. Since he can set up fights just by using the Echo Slam, or if they initiate on the Tinker, he can blink and use the Echo Slam, the Aftershock, to be able to buy Tinker enough space for him to create enough, for him to back off and disengage, and then re-engage back into the fight with the laser as well as the March Spam. So Earthshaker works very well with both the Tinker as well as the Skywrath Mage. Of course, the drawback of the Earthshaker is it's entirely dependent on how effective your Earthshaker player is, since you need to have an exceptionally skilled Earthshaker player if you want to play him aggressively to ensure that you don't block them on the wrong side. Since if you mess up the Fissure Block, you're guaranteed that they're able to get out of there alive. And so Insomnia, they're really deliberating on their third pickup. It looks like we're going to be seeing what mid Pugna and an offlane Doom. He can also run Pugna in the tri-lane, and he is very effective in that tri-lane position. We could be seeing another pushing support hero, something like a Jakiro would work very well with the Pugna because you've got the Liquid Fire, as well as the Nether Blast to be able to knock down these towers. But they definitely want to be drafting for the early to mid game because the pressure is on them. If the game goes late enough, Tinker will be able to completely dominate the game. He's the single most powerful late game hero, simply because he could drag the game out to an obscene length, and when the game goes late, he eventually reaches enough damage that he can immediately start a fight 4v5. And Pugna's Decrep isn't going to save you. It saves you from physical DPS, it ain't going to save you from the Tinker or from the Skywrath, so they opting for the Sand King. And so they know that with the Skywrath Mage Earthshaker pickup, while you can play aggressively into the mid lane, if they clash Tri-v-Tri, it's going to be difficult for them, and depending on what hero they pick up as a carry hero. If it's going to be a tri-lane Pugna, they can't really clash Tri-v-Tri, and so the Sand King makes good use of that. Since he's a very greedy support hero, you want to be picking up level 2, level 3 on him ASAP, rotate to the jungle, and then get an early Blink Dagger. And Sand King, if he's able to find a Blink Dagger very early on, since he could find it by the 8-9 minute mark, so he'll be getting his Blink Dagger before Tinker gets his Boots of Travels around the same time. And so you can then use the Sand King to shut down the Tinker by setting up these ganks with the Blink Burrow Strike. But that being said, there's a lot of greed being placed with Insomnia. Since Sand King, as a support hero at level 1, he's very inefficient just because you have to start with boots to guarantee the Burrow Strike. If you don't start with boots, it's difficult to be able to land that Burrow Strike just because it has such a small range. And ICLEN, they're picking up the Razor, so they've got another fantastic space creator. Razor, you could throw him into any lane. You could run him as a tri-lane hero, so long as you have numbers parity, or you have the advantage in numbers, Razor is always going to dominate the lane. As a 1v1 matchup with that static link, he should be able to do very nicely. If they decide to send, they can even decide to send Razor as the solo offlane against the Doombringer if they clash Tri-v-Tri, and Razor will be able to destroy the Doom in lane.
5 seconds remaining.
Now, it gives you a lot of utility and versatility, and because Razor is what I like to call a retard magnet, he runs at you, draws as much fire as possible, and while being difficult to kill because he's so inherently tanky with the unstable current and with the items he builds, he forces you to deal with them. And while you're busy focusing on the Razor with his pretty lightning, Tinker's sitting in the background throwing out lasers and throwing out missiles, doing his thing. So we've got a line pickup, so line Sand King support to it. And the Decrep from coming up from Pugna with the Finger of Death is absolutely nasty, so they do have that going for them. And line works very well against the Tinker, especially if he's able to get an early Blink Dagger. Since you've got the Sand King to set up the Blink Burrow Strike, line follows up with the Hex. And Hex is one of the most effective ways to deal with the Tinker, since it's 0 cast point, 2.5 seconds at level 1. So it's a very efficient way to be able to control the Tinker in these engagements. But the drawback with Insomnia's lineup so far is they're really lacking a lot of damage. So they have to pick a very aggressive tri-lane carry to be able to capitalize on the lack of the huge amount of control coming out from the rest of their team. Because Doombringer, his sole objective this game is to doom Tinker. If you could doom Tinker and catch him out, you should be able to win that fight, because Tinker is going to be the #1 farm priority for his team, and he's going to take farm from everywhere else across the map. And so the rest of his team will be a lot more item starved, a lot more experience starved, since Tinker will be constantly pushing out these lanes and farming unless they're able to get ahead in terms of kills. And so it gives you a huge amount of impetus to the enemy team if they're able to find a lot of farm on their cores, so they can punish the greed coming out from the Tinker. And so it will be interesting to see what the last bans are going to be coming out from ICLEN. They want to ban an aggressive tri-lane farmer, so we could be seeing something like a Luna ban. Although Luna has fallen a bit out of favor because she is so damn squishy. And if you go for an early BKB, if the game goes late, Tinker then just waits out the BKB, then blows her up with the Dagon E-Blade. And so we could be seeing, they definitely have to go for an early presence tri-lane carry. If they want to clash try, or they want to pick a carry, it's going to be difficult for their supports to deal with. So we could be seeing something like a Weaver pickup coming up from them. They ban out the Juggernaut as the Juggernaut dealing ward, and that enables you to be able to push through much. And so it's a good ban coming up from ICLEN. Weaver would work very well, since the only hero that can really control him effectively is going to be the Skywrath Mage. Of course, the drawback with Weaver is that he does take a lot of time, because he's an attrition-based carry that relies on being able to engage and disengage constantly throughout these fights and deal a lot of chip damage. He's not going to be able to provide that initial burst of damage that a carry like a Lunac or a Juggernaut can provide with the Omni Slash or the Eclipse until he gets sufficiently farmed. We could even be seeing something like a Clink's pickup, as Clink's worked very well against the Tinker, especially if he's able to find an early Orchid or an early Blink Dagger. He can help you knock down these towers. But of course, the Weaver, the Skywrath Mage, he should counter the Weaver in theory with the Ancient Seal. Once the Lincoln Sphere comes online, very difficult for them to deal with. And so we've got the Centaur Warrunner immediate pickup coming up from ICLEN. And the rationale behind the Warrunner is he's there to act as a contingency against the Doom and against the Sand King. So if the Sand King blinks Burrow Strikes and doesn't catch out Centaur, you pop Stampede, the rest of your team immediately scatter. So you can waste the Epicenter, or you can make it, or if Doom does throw out Doom, you can immediately provide some covering fire to the Tinker with the Stampede. But that being said, Centaur Warrunner, especially over in the Dire offlane, does have a very difficult lane. But he knows that because the Sand King's going to be spending a lot of time in the jungle, he can afford to pick up a slightly greedier offlane hero like the Centaur Warrunner. And the biggest weakness of the Centaur Warrunner, is the fact that he needs a lot of farm to be effective. You're going to be getting something like an 11 to 14 minute Blink Dagger, and they've picked up a Slardar coming out as their final pick. And so they're lacking physical DPS, and Slardar provides that in spades with the buff to the passive bash that he has. It's 120 damage at level 4. You could actually even opt to max bash if you're in a 1v1 as offlane situation, and if you happen to get a lucky PRD bash proc, you then commit the Slithering Crush. You could go for a very easy kill. Slardar is a hero that we haven't really seen too much of because he is so snowball dependent. You have to get a very early Blink Dagger up on him, but you need shreds as well so you don't immediately die, and then you have to create enough space for the rest of your team to be able to win the game in the first 30 minutes, because after that point, he starts to really taper off. So I'm going to introduce the players from ICLEN. We've got Top Xeno, going to be over on the 5 position Skywrath Mage. Succon D is going to be the 4 position Earthshaker, at least until he gets that Blink Dagger. Pengu looks like he's going to be the 1 position Razor, rotating into the safe lane. Carl, going to be the mid lane Tinker, so they're very confident in Carl's ability to play Tinker in that mid lane. Elsewise, you want to put him in that tri-lane situation to ensure he's guaranteed to find farm. Untamed going to be that 3 position player over on the Centaur Warrunner, safety ward already up on him, as well as a massive amount of regen to ensure that he can't get bullied out. We've got a smoke rotation coming up from Insomnia, led by Nocturnal. Over in the line scaling, Hex at 1. You usually want to hold on to your skill point. Hex is going to be a lot more effective if there's only 1 target, but on the off chance you could happen to catch out 2-3 heroes with the Earth Spike's going to be a lot more efficient. He does catch out Top Dino though, and Deagle leading the charge. Unfortunately, the defensive fire as Fisher comes out, blocks him in. Went for Crusher at 1, so he's going to be the Slitherine guard. We've got Ella going to be the Sand King. Khaleesi going to be the Pugna. Was expecting a Dragon hero, but hey, Pugna works very well in this lineup. And we've got JL going to be their offlane Doombringer. A lot of regen up on him as well. No safety ward up for him, but I suppose with the supports rotating in full state, Ella should be the drop of safety ward. There we go, it's placed it. Very obvious safety ward placement though. If Succon D's is able to spot that out, he hid in the trees to ensure Succon D's didn't see him place that ward. Since the most common safety ward placement is going to be there, there, or there. And so you usually see the support players placing a sentry around this area to be able to try to catch him out. So Succon D's probably going to be placing a sentry around here or there to try to catch out that ward. And we've got a bit more unconventional safety ward placement being played by Untamed. So you never want to place it here if you're on the Dire side, because it's a very obvious and very greedy pub ward, because it gives you vision of the rune as well as over here. And so usually support players place it there, the sentry ward, because they know that it's going to be in these 2 spots. So you want to go for an unconventional safety ward placement there as well. This is another unconventional safety wall placement because it also blocks that camp, but because it's blocking the camp, it makes it a bit obvious, more obvious where they're placing it. They're usually going to be placing a sentry ward there. And so the importance of the safety ward for the offlaner is huge. If you're able to get a good safety ward that's not dewarded, you're guaranteed to be able to find a lot of golden experience. Or if not experience, gold, at least experience. And Centaur Warrunner, all he really needs is to hit level 6 ASAP. He can, once he gets that Stampede, if he's able to get it very early on, he can do a huge amount of damage against their support heroes and try to go for a pick-off kill with that Stampede. The advantage of the Centaur Warrunner against the melee matchup is when the supports rotate away, Untamed can play very aggressively against Eagle. He could go in, drop the Hoof Stomp, and then throw out a double edge and back off. Especially once he has Tranquil Boost, he can keep spamming that out, or at least spam out the double edge to force Slardar back. And Nocturnal, immediately playing very far forward turn and zone him out, might actually be opting for a point in mana drain at 2 to burn off all of Untamed's mana. Since Centaur Warrunner, the biggest reason why he's not picked up as often now is the fact that Hoofstomp now costs 130. It used to cost 80 at level 1, and so that gave you a lot of flexibility since you had 2 Hoofstomps before you were out of mana. But now with it costing 130, you only get 1 Hoofstomp off, so at level 6 you just barely got enough mana to do your combo. Khaleesi, Decrypts and then Nether Blast. You usually Nether Blast and then Decrypt immediately to guarantee that you're able to get it off. But Nocturnal, now over to the top lane, could be taking a fall here. If they really decide to commit to it with that Plasma Field, Force the Blows herself, so Nocturnal immediately rotating top, pays for it with a few Lightning procs coming out from Pengu over as a safe lane Razor, and he's most likely going to be the mech carrier for his team. And in terms of CS, Untamed, he's actually gotten a massive amount, so the greed of the Sand King really working against them. When you pick up a Sand King as a support hero, unless you're able to find a kill very early on, but since he doesn't have boots, he's never going to be the closest distance to capture Untamed, especially since Untamed has his own boots now. And so you see a lot of teams opt for the Sand King buy boots at 1 and have their other support hero pick up all the support items such as the wards and the sentry to ensure that you have the threat of the level 1 Burrow Strike. They're rotating in over in Khaleesi, so the Mother of Dragons could be taking full Custom Shot, Arcane Bolt, Fissure, and she gets lasered down. And so Dragons, they don't... I suppose Dragons are weak to lasers. JL over in the top lane. He's got enough regen since he's also eaten the Static Hellcaller, so good recognition coming up from JL. The advantage of the Radiant offlane to the Doombringer is you've got easy access to that hard camp, and if you get lucky with something like the Static Hellcaller or even a Wildkin with the Armor Aura, it makes it very difficult to dislodge you from the lane. Because he's got enough HP regen now from the Static Hellcaller Vitality Aura that they're never going to be able to zone him out completely. He's always going to be able to sit in that top lane, especially with the amount of regen he has. Untamed. Safety ward is being pinged out, so he knows that Ella's rotating in. Ella wants to pick up level 3 ideally before he starts the jungle, but we've got his support rotating in from Sarkon D's as well as Top Xeno, so now they're going to provide Untamed a bit more support, because if he gets a very early Blink Dagger, he could create a massive amount of space, and they have to be to shut down Deagle. Since that's the intrinsic weakness of the Slardar, if you play Slardar from behind, you might as well draft another carry, because he's not going to be giving you that guaranteed late game. Sarkon D's, fortunately, pinged out as he set a bit too far forward, got spotted out by the range creeps, they started whacking on him. In terms of CS, Untamed actually is leading the CS scoreboard. He's out CSing the safe lane Slardar. Very surprising, especially considering the fact that Deagle started with the Quelling Blade, and now that Untamed has the Tranquil Boots, every time he's left alone against the Slardar, he's going to walk up and double edge him and just walk off. So he could use that to continue to control the lane. Although that being said, against the Slardar you have to be a bit more careful since he could always choose to commit with the Crush. There's a quick pause coming up from Carl. And in the mid lane matchup, Carl is actually out CSing Khaleesi, so he's doing very well. As Pugna started with boots first, he was expecting a Razor to go mid. And so this is the advantage of ICLEN's draft. You have that flexibility of the Razor as well as the Tinker, because when Tinker's picked up on the Dire side, you usually see him as a tri-lane farmer, because you don't really want a mid lane Tinker. He's a lot more exposed in the mid lane than he is going to be in that safe lane. And if you're able to shut down the Tinker, he starts to become a huge detriment to your team. You have to ensure he gets that early boots of travels into Blink Dagger if you want to have any chance of being able to win the game, especially if they have a very powerful early to mid game lineup. And so he bought Cannon Boots to deal with the Razor. As Razor in the 1v1 matchup, you usually see him offer boots at 1. Well, even if he doesn't offer boots at 1, just because of the threat of the Static Link, even if he only gets 1 tick of that Static Link, it's enough to be able to out CS as the enemy mid lane player, so you usually see Cannon Boots being picked up if you're going mid against, and you know that you're going to be up against the Razor. To Deagle, he really needs to be going towards that Blink Dagger ASAP. Untamed to spot him out, and Top Xeno catching out the Custom Shot, Hoop Stomp layers. Sarkon D's turn to a pick, Crush Flies as well, but Top Xeno might be catching out a fantastic Earth Stomp coming out from Ella, and Ella Burrow striking himself out to safety. Sarkon D's doesn't get that last hit with the Fissure, he actually Fissure blocked him in as well. So good Earth Spike coming out from Nocturnal, but unfortunately they didn't account for the Fissure coming out from the Shaker since they thought they did. So good play coming out from ICLEN. They're able to secure that since you usually don't expect supports to rotate to the offlane. Immediately ICLEN lead the CS scoreboards. All 3 of their cores have around the same in the CS actually, about 22. So they're doing very nicely. Ella does get spotted out by Sarkon D. They're rotating in now mid. Khaleesi's going to be very careful. He's using the Invis rune, so he's keeping himself alive. Ella, he's got the Burrow Strike available, and Custom Shot flies over Top Xeno. Top Xeno could be taking full there as they eats the Nether Blast. And he gets a kill over on Khaleesi before he falls. So you're trading your 5 position Skywrath for that 2 position. More than happy to make that trade. And Pengu in the top lane. JL, while it's going to be difficult to dislodge him from the lane, he's not going to be able to find much CS. The Doombringer is almost entirely dependent on his Devourer at this point, unless the creep wave pushes up like this. Since with the Static Link, it's going to be difficult for him to be able to try to CS. With that being said, Doombringer does have very high base damage, even though he's got a bit of a front swing for his animation. And Centaur Warrunner, this is a threat of the Centaur, especially if you're up against a melee core position farmer. As Deagle FPS, he's been completely zoned out, especially now that Untamed has that Stampede. you can't play too far forward because you know that your Sand King, he wants to be in the jungle. He has to be in the jungle now because he's too far behind. Actually, it looks like he opted for 2 points in the Burrow Strike. You usually see 2 points in Sandstorm to ensure that you're able to jungle very quickly and very efficiently. And so he could have potentially had an 8-9 minute Blink Dagger if he had been jungling a lot earlier on, but because he rotated into that bot lane, wasn't really able to accomplish anything, and because Untamed was able to capitalize on the greed coming out from that Sand King pickup, Ella, he has to try to go for a pick off now before he really rotates into jungle, because if he rotates into jungle with all 3 lanes losing decisively, things are going to be looking fairly grim for Insomnia. Sarkondis continue to apply a lot of pressure, so they can afford to leave Razor alone against the Doom. And so the off lanes effectively become a de facto tri-lane, because you've got a lot of pressure being placed over on Deagle. Since he's so dependent on that Blink Dagger, Crush lands, unfortunately catches the 1. Great Fissure Block coming out from Sarkondis. Untamed gets that Hoop Stomp, Double Edge gonna fly, and Khal Drogo cuts him down. And with the Triangle Boots as well, he still has some regen left. You're never gonna get rid of Untamed in this lane. And when Slardar falls behind like this, if he's not able to get something like a 9-10 minute Blink Dagger and start really creating space, he tapers apart as a hero. Because he's the only real form of physical DPS. You can't really consider Doom as a form of physical DPS. He's there just to be a dick to Tinker. Untamed gets Hexed and then Earth Spike, so Nocturnal doing a fair amount of work. The Stampede flies. Supports are rotating in. Gonna eat the concussive shot. One more attack coming up from him. Great 2-man to the Ring Crush. Ancient Seal flies. A bit too late over on Deagle. If you got that before the Crush flew. Untamed could be the Sacrificial Lamb here, as Deagle's hunting for him. He's trying to juke him out through the trees. Suck on these. He's got enough mana for a fissure. He is able to eat himself through the trees. Great recognition coming up from Untamed. And JL, he's caught out with a 2-man fissure with Suck on these. He's now the Sacrificial Lamb. Unless Ella catches him out. And with that Scorched Earth, they should be able to bring him down, but Sand King gets that cheeky right click in. They are able to clean down Sarkondis as well. And it's a good turnaround coming in from Insomnia, and because you're playing from behind, any trade is a good trade. And Top Zeno gets caught up with the Decret, one more right click, and then the Life Train and the Nether Blast being used. So the Mother of Dragons showing absolutely no mercy. And Pugna now using the Clarity to be able to rotate himself back to the mid lane. But Carl, he's actually opted only for 1 point in laser, so he knows that because Pugna's so squishy, he doesn't really need to be able to control the lane as effectively, especially when he kills up on him. So the earlier point in missiles makes him a lot more relevant. But you do usually see 2 points in laser, as it gives you a lot more laning control. But I suppose Carl, he doesn't necessarily need it too much, as Khaleesi's died twice. And he's been pressured out a fair amount by Carl in that mid lane. So Arcane Boots already up on Sarkondis. So supports are very rich, level 5 up on him, level 4.5 over in the Skywrath Mage. Compare that to the Sand King, who's usually one of the more efficient support heroes, who's falling behind. Things are starting to look a bit grim for Insomnia, but that being said, they do have that turnaround potential. If Sand King is able to find that Blink Dagger, which he should be able to find in the next 4 to 5 minutes if he decides to rush it, unless if the Tower God trickles in. And then the Death Ball of Insomnia starts to really come online. But they need Blink Dagger up over on Deagle, and they need one over on Sand King. And Deagle, he's been completely shut down. In terms of net worth, I believe he's actually, yeah, he's far behind. Sarkondis actually has more net worth than him. And so the 4 position Earthshaker's out CSing and has more net worth than your 1 position farmer. Things are looking grim. Great Fissure Block coming from Sarkondis. He's really been creating the space for these ganks. Tengu uses the Eye of the Storm, called out with the Doom, so opted for a very early point in the Eye of the Storm. You usually see it leveled up at level 9 or level 10. He's saying his ground, he should be able to kill JL. I don't know what JL committed to that. The Eye of the Storm is reducing his armor by a huge amount. And Ella finally is able to clean him up, with Deagle rotating in as well. But your 1 position farm is now rotating to the top lane to get a kill that you shouldn't be able to find just with Ella there. And so you're wasting a lot more time. While it happens, the bot tier 1 has been exposed, and you, unlike the Dire tier 1, the Radiant can't afford to lose their tier 1 over in the bot lane, because it frees up a lot of map control for the enemy team. So you're able to rotate through there. That area of the map no longer is safe. You've got this ward being placed by the Radiant side to spot out any rotations coming in, so they really are fearful of the constant space being made by Top Zeno as well as Sarkondis. And Carl, he's farmed up a 9.5 minute boot to travel, so he's been left completely uncontested in that mid lane. So he's been prioritizing lane CS as opposed to going for Ancients. Since on the Dire side you don't really have that easy access to Ancients and the Radiant side Tinker has, and you don't really want supports to be stacking it when they could be going out setting up kills instead. So Sarkondis, Sentry Ward now up on him, so he's going to go look to D-Ward. We've got a 9 and a 10 minute Blink Dagger up on Untamed, and Deagle can't be left alone against him anymore. We've got the Stampede Blink into the Double Edge. Looks like you opted for 2 points in Sprint. You usually see only 1 point in Sprint now, because you want to max out that Slithering Crush ASAP, or the Bash at any rate. Since it doesn't scale as effectively as it used to, Untamed, has to be very careful. Plasma Field thrown out by Penguin to be able to scout out any rotation coming from the side. Amplify damage flies with Deagle. Stampede's been committed to this. He's turned into a frog, but he's one for hell with fast frog. And Earthshaker is able to end Sand King's spree over in what looks like the mid lane. So Stampede was used to be aggressively to threaten 2 lanes at once. Soul Ring is now available for Tinker. So the reason why you go Soul Ring on Tinker is it makes your marches a lot more efficient. Every time you re-arm, you're able to use that Soul Ring. Untamed goes in, catches out Deagle, and throwing off that Blink Dagger. Earth Spike does catch him out, whilst the Crush. Untamed taking a huge amount of damage, that amplified damage, but Deagle should be taking a fall with missiles, bringing him down. And so the Soul Ring ensures that you're able to get essentially an extra mark every time you rotate to a lane, so it makes you a lot more efficient with your mana pool, and with Tinker, you want to be as efficient as possible with your rotations. It's basically like playing a piano. You want to get down the rhythm and constantly be farming across the map. Until you find an obscene amount of farm on that Tinker, you want to get Blink Dagger so that you're guaranteed to be able to farm anywhere across the map. And then you want to farm up. Most likely going to be a Dagon in this game, because you've got all the lockdown you need from Untamed as well as Top Xeno. Sorry, Suck on D's. So Khaleesi, farming at the mid lane, looks like he opted for FaZe. He's going to be the mech carrier for his team, but he's playing very far from behind. So in terms of net worth, ICLEN are already very far ahead. Pengu gets caught out with the amplified damage with the Purge to fly. I'm actually not 100% certain if a sprint will get purged off. Khaleesi takes the falls Untamed. Carl Drogo, her husband, cuts her down with a double-edged hoof stomp. And JL, he's the saving grace for his team. Looks like he's holding onto his gold, so might be opting... If he's holding onto his gold, like, there's probably going to be the one going for an early Blink Dagger. But the drawback to this is if Doom just has Blink and no Arcane, no mech to really give him sustainability when he jumps in, he dies very quickly, especially since he no longer has the experience lead. Top Dino's level 7. Cyclone D's level 6.5. Top Dino can actually stand and probably kill him unless he dooms the Skywrath. But if you're dooming that 5 position, you're putting yourself in a bad situation. So we've got another quick pause coming up from Carl, as it looks like they are having a few internet issues. And Deagle, a lot of pressure is going to be placed on him. He's only got treads. And when you're at one position Slardar, who's meant to be the one to carry you through these early stages, it's entirely dependent on him being able to find a early Blink Dagger. Looks like he actually sold his Quelling Blade and his Stealth Shield. So things are looking very grim for Insomnia. If we take a quick peek at the Golden Experience graph, you see about a 4,000 experience lead and about a 6,000 gold lead. And when you consider the fact that Insomnia, the pressure is on them, their lineup starts to taper off quite heavily. Pugna, like a Death Prophet, has a 35-minute window of opportunity where you want to breach high ground. If you're unable to breach high ground those 35 minutes, you really start to taper off as a hero. Because that's when BKBs come online. Ella, looks like he gets caught out by Untamed, immediately blown apart. It does the aggressive capability of the Centaur Warrunner. He gives you that execution power, especially if you've got another hero to follow up. Nether Ward Team drops and it's going to zone them out. Unfortunately, they did lose that tower. And Pengu, he's got that mech up on him, so when you're fighting with a team that has mech and you don't have one, you're putting yourself in a bad position. Pengu leading the charge, Untamed goes and catches out 2 double edge as well as Mystic Flame being used. Nocturnal call out with the concussive shot, he could be the sacrificial lamb, as Pengu does have the Eye of the Storm ready, so he can commit that he really wants. Echo Slam being used, no mercy being shown by Untamed. And JL, he shows up late to the party, he says, hey guys, I got a Blink Dagger. Fire Strike closes up from Ella, but Untamed catches out 2 with a hoof stomp, double edge being used, Ella takes the fall immediately. JL, he does have Doom, but he really doesn't want to commit because he's playing so far from behind. Suck on D's, he's tanking the tower, he will be taking a fall, as the hoof stomp flies up from JL. Doom flies on Pengu, but Razor's probably one of the few targets you don't want to doom. You ideally want to be dooming either the Skywrath Mage or the Tinker, they're the priority targets. Razor, because he's carrying the mech, if you doom him before he gets the mech off, it's justified, but if he's able to get the mech off, or if the mech's on cooldown, it's not really worth it. Deagle should be the going for a kill, but the hoof stomp already flies from Untamed. Good recognition coming up from him to save his carry play. And Carl, he now gets called out with the hoof stomp. He's been decrept up, so the decrep unfortunately buying him a lot of time. That decrep actually saved him. And Carl now trying to deny himself over to the Ancients. And he immediately blinks himself out. Carl has his Blink Dagger now, and he's going to juke on out there. So the decrep coming up from Khaleesi, unfortunately buying Carl enough time to be able to rotate himself out of that. If he hadn't decrept him with that amplified damage with a few right clicks, Deagle should have been able to cut him down. Deagle now playing very aggressively. He really wants this. He has to get this kill over on Carl. But you don't want to dive against a Tinker because he's got laser. With the March and the missile and the tower hitting you with the laser blind, you're not going to be able to deal enough damage to kill him. So you can turn around, even if he's at half HP. Suck on D's. D-Wards gets called out by Ella as well as Deagle, so caught in a rock in a hard place, and then gets fingered as well. So a lot of hatred coming out from Insomnia. Nocturnal, he's sick of it. He decides just to finger him. He got Echo Slam, so trading an ult for an ult and a small hero. Although the difference is the Finger of Death, you want to prioritize that over on the Tinker, especially since it basically saves you a Doom. You decrep and then you finger them. Looks like Pugna's actually opting to max out decrep or going for a split level build. You usually only need 1 point in decrep to be able to make good use of your abilities. Decrep has been buffed, so it now costs 60 mana at all levels. And the damage amp has increased, I believe, 50%. Yeah. So if you're able, you don't even have to use the Finger of Death, the Doom on the Tinker. If you could catch him on the decrep finger, that's enough burst damage to be able to bring down Tinker at the very start of these fights. And once the E-Blade comes online, you've got that working for you as well. And since he used it on the support hero, it's a 2.5 minute cooldown. Very expensive spell to expend for a kill that was essentially guaranteed. So Pengu Probably going to be going for an Aghanim Scepter, yeah, there we go, to provide you a lot more pushing presence, since he doesn't necessarily have to go for a BKB yet. He's tanky enough with that mech, and with the rest of his team there, that he doesn't really have to fear the AoE presence coming up from the Pugna, as well as coming up from the Sand King. And so Ela, Arcane boots up on him, so he opted to go for Arcane to provide a lot more sustainability for his team. He really needs a Blink Dagger up on him. If Insomnia are able to get that triple Blink combo with Slardar, Sand King, and Doom getting their Blinks, if they're able to get it in around this time, then things will be looking very good for them, because they've got the pick-off power. You have 3 heroes immediately jump on one, pick them off at the start of a fight, and then take a tower every time you take a fight. But now that Carl has his Blink Dagger, they've lost their timing window that the Sand King was meant to provide. So it really does boil down to the lack of boots up on him. Untamed, turned to a frog. Well, I guess turned into a fish now. Nocturnal eats a missile, takes a good chunk of his life. Very aggressive March Snapping coming up from Carl. But a bit more covering fire to really force him back. Eagle forced to use Slithering Crush to farm, still opting to max out Crush. That's how far behind the Slardar is playing, and when you're playing Slardar from behind, he actually offers you very little. At least if you're playing a hero like a Wraith King or a Chaos Knight, you have a rage stun. Slardar, because you have to physically put yourself in position to be able to get your stun off, and because you're so damn squishy with that sprint, if you play him from behind, he becomes a huge liability for your team. If you have another form of physical DPS, he could at least provide the amplified damage. So if you had a range carry, or if they had a raids of their own, then the amplified damage does a fair amount of work. But while that's happening, ICLEN farming out Roshan. Untamed tanking. He's got the Tranquil Boots. Looks like he's going to be going for a Pipe of Insight. And so it does a lot of work on the Centaur Warrunner, because A, you're going to be the one initiating on them, and B, the magic barrier ensures that you get a free double edge. You're not losing anything for it. Since double edge is a low enough cooldown, you can usually get 2 off in a fight. Always good to be to start with that HP buffer advantage. It looks like Pengu is going to be the one picking. It's a little penguin that could. They'll be farming up his Aghanim Scepter before they look to break high ground, so they're just going to try to knock out these outer towers. Got some split pushing coming out from JL, but immediately Carl looks to defend, throws out the missile, does what Tinker does best. And now that he's got a Blink Dagger, it's very difficult for him to be able to pressure these lanes, but Ela, if he had that Blink Dagger of his own, he could look to go in on the Tinker, especially with the Doombringer there, but not able to do so. They're forced to TP back to defend their tier 2, and Carl can immediately rejoin that fight. We now have a Blink Dagger available for suck on these, and so triple Blink initiation coming out from ICLEN, with Untamed setting it up.
Radiant's middle tower is under attack.
Or the Earthshaker cyclone, these could go in if they happen to clump in range for the Echo Slam. So you can start a fight off the back of that with Untamed coming in for the double-edged Hoop Stomp. And Pengu, with that Aegis the Immortal, he's going to be the one drawing as much fire as possible. And he knows they really can't do anything. Ela looks like he went to go in to perhaps rotate and maybe set up an Epicenter, immediately call out the Ancient Seal, gets torn apart by the Mystic Flare. This is the power of the Skywrath Mage when you're ahead. You just man-fight every other support, and you just provide so much offensive capability on their hero that's very difficult for the support to do anything. It's the reason why you no longer see support heroes like Crystal Maiden, because if she tries to go toe-to-toe against Skywrath, just tears her apart. Or even heroes like the Queen of Pain. The Skywrath Mage can man-fight the Queen of Pain, unless the Queen of Pain is able to kill him at the very beginning using the Scream of Pain Sonic Blade combo, but at that point you're expanding it for a support hero, so you're more than happy to take that trade. So it looks like number 1 is down. Stab beat's being used. Untamed goes in, unfortunately wasn't able to catch up Khaleesi. Nocturnal corner with the Ancient Seal, even dies immediately. Doom's been used on Carl, so they're able to start that fight, but JL immediately dies. The rest of his team are falling apart. Echo Slam flies, and they're actually catching out 3. Ela runs in. Deagle should have late to the party, should be able to bring down top 2. One more right click. Untamed called out the amplified damage. He's got a Hoof Stomp coming to cool down 1 more second, so he can use that to turn over on Ela. Actually, just double edges him in the face. Pengu, he doesn't really give a damn. He's got the Leech, he's got the Iron Storm and persist through Aegis, and Untamed gets the last hit with the Hoof Stomp. Never mind, looks like Carl took it. So Carl, I believe, did he actually survive through that? Did he buy back? No, he actually survived. Yeah, so Carl survived despite the Doom. So they came in one at a time, and ICLEN, because they had the Aegis, they didn't really give a damn, they died. The only casualty they took was the Skywrath Mage. Looks like Untamed goes in for a Hoop Stomp double edger from Nocturnal and just blows them apart. The added synergy that they have with the execution power of the Centaur Warrunner is the Ancient Seal on top of the double edge. It's an insane amount of damage. It's enough to be able to bring down Nocturnal starting fight, since he ate the laser, the missile, and the double edge immediately popped him. The Pengu, they should be able to take the tier 3 tower at least. Hoof Stomp flies, was a double edge over in Khaleesi. One more record coming up from Pengu and the Plasma Field. Plasma Field unfortunately is on cooldown. Ela gets a great 2-man Burrow Strike. Untamed actually takes a fall, defeats a fair amount of gold, and Pengu's going to back himself on Ela. He goes for one more cheeky right click, but he actually overstayed his welcome. One more right click coming out from JL should be enough. Mystic Flare being used, catch it out mostly over in Deagle, but Deagle doesn't really give a damn. He might be able to catch out Pengu. There we go. Blink comes in from JL and he takes it. Slardar looks like he actually got it, but he immediately gets blown apart by Carl. He's now showing off his Dagon. So it's a bit like an old Dota 2 joke. Why is Dagon called Dagon? Because Dagon. And Tobzino looks like he cleans up Ela in the meanwhile. Missile flies. Carl, he's got Dagon available. Crush flies. Fortunately, doesn't have enough mana, and so Deagle should be able to make it out of them. Then Mandalays is enough with the Ancient Seal. Tobzino once again takes a fall. as it looks like Khaleesi is able to clean that up. Looks like he's going for the Aghanim Scepter, so you never want to go for an Aghanim Scepter on the Pugna unless you're incredibly far ahead. You need that mechanism to give your team that initial impetus, because when you're fighting against a team that has a mech and you don't have a mech, if you've got no other form of sustain, you're in for a bad time. Especially with the pipe now available, and considering the vast majority of Insomnia's damage is coming out from magic damage, the pipe and the mech combo is going to ensure that it's going to be very difficult for them to get a trade evenly, or even actually go for a trade. It's conceivable now that they're going for a kill. Looks like Suck on these. He jukes out the Hoofstomp, does eat the Doom though, so he should be taking a fall. Stampede being used defensively to try to buy enough space so he can blink out. But Blink is coming off from JL. It looks like Carl, he's immediately coming on in. He's going to help out support. Actually denies Suck on these. No mercy being shown by Carl, even to his own teammates. Double damage rune, looks like he throws out a missile, catches out JL. We've got Untamed coming in. Hoofstomp, double edge. And a few more cheeky right clicks, and Carl gets another kill. Ella, sandstorming himself out to safety. Nocturnal's also there, waiting in case they decide to commit to that. Burst strike coming up from him. Netherwall's being dropped, they're going to be 4 stack, and the Decryptify buys Untamed enough time to be able to blink one out there. But with Doom bringing down, and with Doom being expanded in exchange for the 4th position Earthshaker, they're more than happy to take that trade. Earthshaker looks like he's going for what looks like a 4-star. He can go for a Dagon of his own, join in the fun with Carl. They're most likely going to be a 4-star to provide that repositioning power. And so Centaur Warrunner will be interesting to see what item he chooses to go for next. He does have a fair amount of flexibility once you get Tranquil Boots. Some players like to go for the early BKB so you can stand tall in these engagements and you get that free double edge. You can run in and start smacking them. Since Centaur Warrunner does hit very hard due to his obscenely high strength gain. Or a lot of other players like to go for the utility, picking a 4-star, especially if you're up against a hero like the Centaur Warrunner. Oh, sorry, a Clockwork Goblin as the Centaur Warrunner, so it lets you 4-stuff yourself out of cogs, or if you're against a hero like a Lifestealer. And Suck on these, with that maxed out Aftershock, he's providing a massive amount of lockdown. To put it into context, just by using all 3 of his abilities without, if he staggers them properly, if you don't include the stun time from Fisher, that's 4.5 seconds of stun time, just off Aftershock. It's an absolutely obscene ability that works very well with the Earthshaker, especially once the Blink Dragon comes online. Because the Enchant Totem pretty much becomes a free stun that you get. They should be able to take that tower. Pengu, Aghanim Scepter up on him. He can just sit there at the high ground and start slow sieging their tower with their Eye of the Storm up. It's unfortunately only level 2, so he's not going to gain the 3 procs per second that he would have had with level 3. But at this point, when you're this far ahead in terms of experience, you're more than happy to go in for these early kills. So he's going to sit there with Top Xeno, as well Suck on these hanging there waiting in the wings. Defensify Fisher being used to try to block them out. Carl, DOTing very far forward. He does shift through that blink out, so he should be fine. Looks like Untamed choosing to commit with that Stampede as well as the pipe, but unfortunately, doesn't even spot anybody in Top Xeno. Now he's going into try to kill off that Nether Ward. Tengu should be able to clean it up. So Khaleesi, only level 3 Nether Ward. And with the Nether Ward down, they can choose to commit to this Nocturnal. Turns Untamed into a fish, eats that concussive shot in retaliation, and Carl, he's going to BOT himself back home, so he's actually out of mana. So they've got a small window of opportunity to decide to capitalize. They go once to get over on Pengu, but Pengu's tanky enough, he doesn't really give a damn at the Doom. Deagle, no blink down on a huge Echo Slam coming up from Suck on these and Untamed. And they clean up 3 just off those 2. Suck on these might be the sacrificial Landos, he ate that Finger of Death like it was candy. Mystic Flaming lift, but Carl's able to Dago on him. Ella comes in, no epicenter yet, he bought back for that, and he immediately gets turned around on essentially he dropped. And that's 2 sets of racks now going in favor of ICLEN. They should be able to clean up the bottom one and maybe do enough damage to at least take out the melee racks over the mid lane. So fantastic execution coming out from Suck on these, who's the real MVP for this game. Setting up all these kills throughout the game, and then winning that team fight decisively. Just him and Untamed. The sheer amount of AoE damage coming out from the Echo Slam with the Hoofstomp double edge really just decimated the enemy team. They're going to rotate in. That Eye of the Storm is off cooldown now, so they should be able to take that to the racks as well. Since they don't have Doom, they don't have that Blink Dragon on Slardar. And Slardar looks like he's going for the Armlet Medigian. This is a pub level build. You go for Armlet after you pick up the Blink. You absolutely have to have Blink on Slardar for him to be effective as a hero. Otherwise, you'd be better off just drafting a hero like a Wraith King or a Chaos Knight. And it gives you at least that much more reliable lockdown with the ring stun. Untamed catches out 2 fantastic Hoofstomp coming from him. Double Aegis Khaleesi brings him down. Mystic Flag cuts down JL. Nocturnal catches him out with the Earth Spike. Doesn't have to Finger of Death. And Deagle, he gets called out by Suck on these. Dagon comes up from Carl. He's able to clean them up. So it's beyond godlike. Untamed, he backs himself off. He's another ward. Carl doesn't really give a damn. He just blows him up with 1 Dagon charge.
You just proved my theory.
Netherward's still there. Actually burns a fair amount of his HP as he rearms underneath the Netherward aura. And Ella, no blink up on him as well. So a lot of pressure for how this game turned out lies with the Slardar pickup. Because he was so ineffective, because they picked up a Sand King, he's a very greedy support hero. And they should have picked a range carry so that Centaur Warrunner wouldn't have such an easy link. Centaur Warrunner, he got a free wave of last hits and experience. Before the supports were even there, so that support rotation, everything up top, completely fell apart because of Cyclone-D's Fissure flying up. Otherwise, Top Zeno could have been the sacrificial lamb there as he was caught up with that hex. Because I had great expectations, but unfortunately took a fall. Hoofstomp flies over in Cyclone-D's, but JL's being forced back by the Eye of the Storm. Untamed, taking a fair amount of damage, amplified damage. He could be the sacrificial lamb, the next charge flies up from Pengu. And Khaleesi, the Active Scepter isn't really giving you much. Ella finally gets the first epicenter of the fight. He's able to clean up 2 off the back of that. Echo Storm flies, coming from Cyclone-D's, but he should be taking forward at amplified damage. Looks like Dagon Charge flies up from Carl. Carl's now turned into a fish. Ella sandstorms himself up to ensure he doesn't get blown apart. Decryption uses well the Nether Blast, and there we go. The Nether Ward actually cleans him up, so he re-armed underneath that tower, underneath the Nether Ward. Untamed, now pops Stampede. Ella, no safe haven for you. Hoofstomp knocks you into the dust. It looks like that's GG for ICLEN. As Insomnia, it's very difficult for them to recover at this point, but take a look at the golden experience. 25,000 experience lead. Untamed, looks like he eats a level death in the Hoofstomp. And about 30,000 gold lead. And when your 2 Raxes down against the split pushing presence of the Tinker, when that team fight is superior, since Insomnia, the lineup only has 10 more minutes before it really starts running out of steam, and they've already lost that timing window because they don't have a blink up on Slardar. So it really does lay with the inefficient builds coming out from both their players. Their mid lane player, Khaleesi, not going for an early mech.
Radiant's Ancient is under attack.
And Deagle not really going for that blink early on, really did cripple the game for them. So 26 minutes into the game, ICLEN able to take a very convincing game. So it looks like they're going to be the ones advancing through to beat, to play up against Team Envy in the next round. That will determine who the winner of their bracket will be, so we're going to be taking a quick break, and we should be right back.